Smart voices to discuss the military operation and ISIS in and of itself. Joining me again today, CNN military analyst and retired Lieutenant General Mark Hertling and Politico magazine contributor Michael Weiss. So welcome to both of you. And General, I mean, you were just full of incredible information. You've been to this part of the world. You have been on Sinjar Mountain. But let me just begin with these airstrikes. We know that the U.S. had to move in swiftly, of course, with the element of surprise. Just what's the message the U.S. is trying to send here?
Well, Brooke, first of all, good afternoon. And I think the first message is this is the first time ISIS has been accosted by some significant air power. Those F-18 strikes, even though it was a simple one, truthfully, it was a laser-guided, a GBU, probably a 12 that they allowed to drop on those positions. It's a great effect. It will certainly say, hey, there's some support now for the Peshmerga, for the Kurdish region, and I think that's an important signal to send. As I think one of the reporters said earlier, things have been a little bit different, a little bit more subdued in the Kurdish region this morning after that strike last night, and I think it certainly sent a signal to the ISIS forces that we're getting a little rowdy in that area. But I want to go back to what Barbara said a minute ago about the airdrops. That was a great mission. Those guys in the C-17, guys and gals in the C-17s and the C-130s who do those delivery of parachute packages in very precise locations with also global guided units. They have some very unique GPSs in those packages that will put a large container of humanitarian assistance right on the spot. Those Air Force pilots that did that are pretty skilled as well. That mission all took place before the media got a hold of this last night, so I think that was part of the security involved in this operation.
Understandably, you certainly don't want to give the bad guys on the ground the heads up. I'm coming back to you, General, but Michael, I mean, we've talked about this before because we've been covering ISIS in depth over the past couple of months, right? Really since the beginning of the year. But ISIS itself, can you just remind all of us level of sophistication? We know brutal as brutal can be, but they're pretty sophisticated.
They are. I mean, they operate more as a conventional army now than a transnational terrorist organization. I mean, it's important to remember they grew out of what used to be known as Al-Qaeda in Iraq, right? And actually, they're no longer even called ISIS. They're just called the Islamic State. It used to be the Islamic State of Iraq and Al-Sham, which is Syria. These guys have metamorphosized into something very vast, very powerful, and very scary. Now, we've seen images of all the material and military equipment they've confiscated from the United States that were left on Iraqi
using
bases.
our U.S. weapons.
Right. Now, I think it's important to emphasize a lot of this equipment, particularly the heavier and more sophisticated stuff, is not easy to use. They require a lot of maintenance. You need specialists to kind of man this stuff. So what worries me more about ISIS is the unlimited supply of AK-47 ammunition, mortars, artillery that they have, and the things that they've been bringing to bear against the Peshmerga. I think that's why the U.S. is now striking these areas. I mean, this is only about an hour's drive away from downtown Erbil, which not only do we have U.S. personnel on the ground there, but that has been historically one of the safest, most secure cities in all of Iraq, and it's a success story of not just U.S. occupation, but prior to that, the no-fly zone that we manned in the early 90s. So, I mean, this is gravely worrying.
Perched precariously close.
Absolutely.
Thus, the airstrikes, the beginning of multiple, as many people are talking about. General, I guess my follow-up on Michael's point about the sophistication level and the AK-47s and whatever it is they have that they're using, you have to wonder about retaliation, what they could do with this first round of airstrikes. And we mentioned yesterday, I think it's worth mentioning again, that hydroelectric dam near Mosul. What could they do? What are they capable of?
Well, I've been to the dam at Mosul as well, Brooke, and in fact took a bunch of reporters up there in 2008 to show them that this is a pretty secure area. Now, there are certainly things they can release water, but if you're getting the image that someone's going to put a hole in the side of something that looks like the Hoover Dam, that's not going to happen. This is a big waterway. There could be releases of water that could certainly flood some areas, but it's not going to be catastrophic. And I don't think ISIS is going to want to do that anyway.
You don't think it would be catastrophic? Because I have heard other very smart people come on this show saying absolutely they have that capability and it could flood Baghdad.
Well, I don't think that could be possible, to be honest with you, having seen the lake. But there certainly could be some flooding in the plains, in the northern Nineveh plains. It's not going to reach Baghdad. I don't think it's even going to reach some of the other cities that were mentioned. And especially in the August time period, I would suspect that that dam and the lake behind it is relatively low. That's not a concern, but the fact that they have possibly taken it over to control the hydroelectric power, that's a different story altogether.
I'm also one. Go ahead, General.
Piece, so I certainly agree with Michael in terms of what he said. I would be much more concerned with the small arms weapons, with the Humvees that they had, the transportation assets. I heard a report that a Kurdish official said that they were firing M1 tanks at them. That concerns me a little bit because I don't think I would want an ISIS fighter behind the sights of an M1 tank because they wouldn't know how to use it or how to hit something. It would be more dangerous than hitting a target if you put someone in that machinery.
What about Kurdish military, Michael, to you? What about the Peshmerga and resupplying or helping supply them to fight this fight?
Well, there was some speculation this week as to whether or not the U.S. has been arming the Peshmerga. And I know representatives from the KRG, the Kurdistan Regional Government, said, no, this isn't the case. Well, George Packer at the New Yorker reported this week that, in fact, we are doing that. We're just doing it covertly. I mean, you have to keep in mind the Peshmerga, while probably still the most formidable fighting force on the ground in Iraq, they are answerable to the KRG and not to Baghdad necessarily. We don't want to go around the central government. It's all about maintaining the, well, I would say the illusion of Iraq's unity, right? We can't go behind Maliki's back. We have to go. But, you know, look, my guess is if we're now giving them air support, we're probably also covertly running material and arms and also sharing intelligence directly with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come back. We'll be talking about this for a little while. Michael Weiss, I appreciate it. And General Hertling, as always, truly appreciate your expertise. Gentlemen, thank you. Let's focus now on the innocent men, women, and children.